Welcome back to Atlantic Motorsport Park and our East Coast doubleheader in the 2019 Mopar Canadian National Superbike Championship. I'm your host, Frank Wood, and we're joined by Colin Fraser in the announcer booth for Race 5 in our 7-race 2019 tour. Today's event is presented by LS2 Helmets, Pro Cycle, and Liquimulli. Our broadcast is presented by Mopar Express Lane, Dunlop, and Parts Canada.
And here we are at Atlantic Motorsport Park, and we've been complaining about how hot and humid and sunny it is. Well, congratulations, we moved on to a different set of problems related to the weather.
Yeah, that problem's been solved. Man, we just got hit by a vicious rainstorm, and we were down for quite some time. I wasn't looking at the clock or anything when the storm hit, Colin. As a matter of fact, I dashed to cover, but it seemed to take a while. But the rain has stopped, and the temperature dropped a little bit, and track's still very hot, of course, but that would indicate to me it's probably going to dry up pretty quick.
Well, it was raining a little bit, and we thought maybe we could kind of get between the showers, and then it was the crazy thunderstorm with the rain coming down horizontally to the point they had to bring the marshals in, and one of our camera platforms partially came apart, and then there was a whole bunch of work to do around the track, and some people were worried we weren't going to have the race. Some people maybe didn't want to have the race, but we're going again, and the funny thing is, it's been a really long time. We think the last time there was a full wet Superbike race was Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and Frank Trombino won on an Aprilia. Jordan Szoke actually missed that race because he was there. We see Jordan Szoke with Ben Young on their warm-up laps, and he was out with a wrist injury from a dirt bike crash. So it's been a long time since we've had a full wet Superbike race. The riders had a 10-minute warm-up session because they have not been out in the rain this weekend at all, and now Dunlop have asked for 2 warm-up laps just so everybody's got a scrub tire, but lots of unknowns. I don't think Ben Young has ever done any serious riding on a Superbike in the rain. Of course, he used to race in the UK, and they have a lot of inclement situations there, so I think Ben Young is probably good in the rain, but we certainly know Jordan Szoke is extremely good in the rain.
Well, Ben Young scored a podium position at Road America when he was competing in the AMA Pro Racing. He scored a 3rd place finish on a rainy and chilly day. He was actually on the podium, rather, Colin. He had a Tucson. He was so chilly that day.
Yeah, here we are heading into turn 3, and we can see Young and Jordan Szoke riding together, which is interesting on a warm-up lap. That's not typical. Samuel Trepanier, who almost won yesterday in the dry and got passed in the last turn by Ben Young. He's in the back of that shot too. Now we're on board with Ben Young's BMW. He's following Michael Leon, and of course Leon almost won at St-Eustache in the rain a few years ago. Came very close and had a crash late in the race, an event that Jordan ended up winning.
Well, we don't know how Trevor Daly's going to handle rain conditions, but we do know that Ben Young, throughout his career, has had occasions to race in the rain, and as you mentioned, Jordan Szoke, of course, he's got a deep well to draw from in virtually all conditions, so this should be a very interesting contest.
Yeah, it's going to seem like a long race to these guys after the incredibly hot pace yesterday. Amazing pace of Ben Young to come from behind and win that race. Jordan Szoke, of course, had a gigantic crash yesterday, so he's on his backup bike, and I wouldn't be surprised that Jordan doesn't mind that we're facing these unknown conditions, because he normally thrives when there's a lot of variables, and he has more experience racing here than anyone else. I mean, some of these guys weren't born when Jordan started racing here.
Good point, yeah. Well, the riders were given a choice, and they don't necessarily have to run on rain tires, but indeed the entire field has chosen to start on rains. If the track dries very quickly, Colin, we could have tire problems.
However, I think that the reality is that the amount of rain we had as quickly as we did, and the amount in the verges, and the fact the marshals have been trying to clean at least a groove through the puddles and whatnot, I don't think the drying track's going to be an issue, but we'll see.
Riders are now looking towards the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers starting lights. Those lights are beginning to come on. The last 2 are now on. We'll watch for them to go off. When they go off, the clutches are out and the field is away and running. Down into turn 1, they steam. Let's pick up on, see who's got the lead. There's Ben Young immediately into the race lead, and there's Trevor Daly. We are on board, incidentally, with Samuel Trepanier on the Blisk Racing Carrier BMW sponsored S1000RR.
And Trepanier was pretty careful there. He lost a couple of spots, so he not too comfortable with the conditions. Ben Young, you can see his rain light flashing, very comfortable with the conditions, hammer down, and Daly trying to stay with him.
Daly's in a very good position, then he should latch on to Ben Young and go to school on him. Be a real good idea for Trevor.
Yeah, and there we can see, I think that's Leon in third, then Szoke and Trepanier, and a little further back, it's really packed up right now. And of course, well, look, there's actually a couple of dry spots on the back straight already, Frank, so I might be wrong about my tire guess.
Well, again, we've talked about temperatures in yesterday's race, 50 degrees, so that the asphalt is very warm, and the liquid is going to evaporate very quickly off.
Look
off
at Szoke making that move on Leon the carousel. Nice. And Leon being a little more careful. Trepanier probably trying to figure out the conditions by seeing what everybody else is doing.
Oh, noticeably slower in the pace, though, from what we saw yesterday. Obviously, the rider's going to have to be very cautious. Now, they did get a 10-minute warm-up period so that they could get a good idea of what traction was like out there. And they brought them back in and checked the tires and what have you. And everybody was given the choice, pick your tire and let's go racing.
Trepanier having a look on Leon's, maybe trying to get that fourth place. Let's see in the back. No, Leon's still fourth. I think it's Trepanier and then Steven Nickerson on that Honda, having another good run in his first full season in the Superbike series.
Stevie Nickerson on the DeWilt-sponsored Honda. He also enjoys some support from Inside Motorcycles, the media partner for Mopar CSBK. The field's really spread out, Colin. A big distance between all of the riders. Look at them there, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could probably stack 10 bikes in between each one of them.
I think it's a little misleading because they're trying to figure out the conditions and the spray is a bit of a factor. So initially you probably want to give everybody a little bit of room. I would actually say that them being equal distance suggests that there isn't much going on and everybody's just found their comfortable spot. I think we're going to start seeing some action soon because they're close enough. When you're close enough to see the guy, you're close enough to have a plan, right? And if I had to guess right now, I'd say Szoke's the guy on the move.
Szoke had a rather nasty crash yesterday. I don't know whether that's maybe detuned him a bit. It has most certainly taken his second bike out of his hands, because that was another option the riders were given. They could choose tires, or indeed they could jump on the B-bike.
Yeah, but Szoke was going back and forth between the bikes before the crash yesterday. Both the bikes are strong. Daly, actually, his bikes are somewhat different, and he's on the more stock one, and that's not a rain choice. That's where he went with this track because it's so bumpy and hard to use all the horsepower. So he went with a slightly less aggressive tune, and he feels he can manage with the electronics better. Of course, we haven't mentioned this lately, but bike's hugely managed by the setup on the electronics, and we certainly have rain mode, so the bikes would be heavily restricted to try and control the wheel spin and make them easier to handle, and they're obviously not revving as high up. They're being smooth on the power, trying not to spin the tires. We have those big grooved turbine-style Dunlop rain tires that work so well, unless you get late in the race on a drying track, and then it can get a little sketchy. And there are a few dry spots. You can see some steam there too because the track was so hot when it rained. And look at that, Szoke on top of the Suzuki of Daly, and I think he's coming.
The horsepower rating on an ideal situation, a dry day and what have you, of course, they're allowed a maximum of 200, but no more than 200 horsepower. What kind of horsepower would they be dealing with on these bikes on this day?
Hard to say exactly. Still quite a bit. I think Daly's rain map, we saw it in the high 180s, which doesn't seem too restricted. But it's also how the throttle responds and how direct it is and how far the butterfly's open. Remember, these bikes have two sets, fly-by-wire. Everything's controlled by electronics. So it may be that the bike never completely opens the throttle all the way, even in sixth gear. And at Shubenacadie, that's the kind of thing that might make the bike more rideable. Daly doesn't have a lot of time with that Suzuki. Jordan, first year with the Kawasaki. Trevor and his crew have been running the BMW for quite a while, and that's a really proven package with a very good set of electronic options. So maybe BMW have a slight edge in this situation, but right now there's not much to really choose between a BMW, a Suzuki, and a Kawasaki, and these guys are turning literally identical lap times.
And the top three riders, obviously, as you can see, looking back to the group in chase, the top three riders have distanced themselves somewhat. And speaking of distance, it looks like Ben Young has established some serious distance here. And I would suggest that if Jordan Szoke is intent on beating Ben Young today, that he would probably want to get past Daly pretty quickly.
Well, it's early days, right?
Dives to the inside, Szoke has made the pass. Szoke moves into second spot.
Yeah, that was it's deceptively easy and early. Unusual pass there. I wonder if Trevor maybe was just a little careful. Wow. Trevor just about got Jordan from behind. I think that was almost a sort of a repeat of what we saw yesterday. And look at Jordan. He's trying some different things, and he is on the move. And look at how quickly he's almost split the distance. So yeah, I don't think that Young has a safe lead at all.
Jordan seemed to get that thing straightened up very quickly as well. Got it much more vertical than he might have been in dry conditions. And you can see the track drying quickly. The gray spots there indicating that indeed it is dry in very many spots on this racetrack.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's dry. It's less wet and starting to come up, but it did rain really hard. There's so much moisture in the grass, and you can see the track steaming in this section every lap when we see that. It's so hot there, and there is a high spot, but it's not on the line. So yeah, it's coming around, but the tires will work pretty well for quite a long time. Right here, it's still quite wet, so that'll cool the tire, make it a little bit easier, and of course your confidence is increasing, and you're getting more familiar with where the traction is, and we maybe by the end of the race they're going to be leaving black lines even on a wet track.
Yeah, that first lap around was rather sedate. Colin, I have to pass comment on the fans, how they just hunkered down, they found shelter, and they did not leave this venue. They wanted to stick around and watch this round 5 of the Mopar Canadian Superbike National Championships. Got a lot of Superbike fans here in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, I think even with our less attractive weather today, we've had a pretty good turnout. And I think also when yesterday's race was so good, people are inclined to stick around, right? They're hoping they're going to see another show. And yesterday's was a landmark race, and definitely a big moment in the career of Ben Young. One of the most exciting and unpredictable races we've had in a very long time, and weirdly, Jordan Szoke wasn't a part of it.
Young and Szoke have really upped the pace here, and they have left Daly behind now as they speed to the front. Well, this has been the battle all year, of course, and Ben Young, as we've commented a number of times, this is a changed man coming into this race season.
Young with his knee on the deck there, and it's sort of a standard thing this year. Young is leading and looking comfortable, and there's lots of pressure and lots of things going on. Yesterday, his pace after that problem was so impressive. So many laps, so close together.
Oh, look at this. Szoke goes to the inside of one. Oh, man, I thought he had a pass happening there.
Yeah, that was obviously it worked so well with Daly. He was thinking, let's try it again. And for a split second, yeah, the optics seemed to suggest that Szoke had made it work, but he's so close. But I don't know if you caught that, Frank. The next 4 guys, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, are only 3 seconds back maybe. So these guys have not pulled away as much as you might think. There's a big gaggle of guys there. You can see them. There's 4 bikes. I know one of them's Jeff Williams because his bike is red.
Yeah,
right?
He's so easy to spot, that S1000RR in red, sponsored by Williams Paving.
And as they head on the roller coaster, we just caught another glimpse of those 4 bikes. So I think that's probably Trepanier, Williams, Kazas, who's back on his R1. He solved the handling issue he had yesterday. A little interesting that he did so well on his R6, his 600 bike yesterday, and today he's back on the R1 in the wet, and continuing that march forward in his first season as a serious Superbike competitor.
I think Michael Leon on the Royal Distributing BMW is also a part of that mix, if I'm not mistaken.
And it turns out we have lost Stephen Nickerson. He has fallen down, and that's a shame because he was in that group too.
That was a shame. Nickerson has had rough luck at times.
Yeah, I think that's his 3rd fall in the Superbike this weekend here. 2 of them were in turn 4, the last one coming onto the front straight. And it's tough riding a Superbike here. It's his first time doing that, and he's had a number of good rides this year on what is an underpowered machine, although a very distinctive underpowered machine.
That teal blue DeWilt sponsored Honda. Most unfortunate that Stevie's out of this race, because we always like to have a Honda in the front.
Heading down the hill into the bomb hole past turn 4 before we start the roller coaster, and Jordan's body posture suggests it's a move coming. Everybody tiptoeing through those puddles, and now we start at the top of the hill in the back straight, which is always difficult but looks a little drier than the rest of the track at this point.
This should get very interesting if indeed, and we anticipate that Szoke will attempt to pass, and I would rest assured, given Young's aggressiveness yesterday rather in the race. You can rest assured that if Szoke makes the pass, that Young will most certainly want to make a dice out of it.
Yeah, and you can see Ben changing his lines up just a little bit, probably looking for what he thinks are the high spots with more traction. And Szoke for sure has an advantage in this situation because he can see what Young's doing and adapt. Young has no reference. He's led from the start, and there goes Jordan looking up the inside again.
Turn number 1, and has he made the pass? No, he hasn't. We don't see very many passes in turn 1, and already Szoke has made 2 passes there and 2 attempts on Young.
Young just a little wide there, and I don't think that was a mistake, and I think he's changing up his lines. But again, we saw that big group of guys not far behind, which is an interesting situation. We're not as spread out as you might think we would be in the rain.
The race within the race, you might say. Working down now in towards turn number 4, and that downhill, and again, the camera doesn't really capture the depth.
Young a little. I don't think that was a plan. He was wide there, and it is bumpy offline, so that probably distracted him and slowed him just a bit.
On board with Braveheart right now, onto the roller coaster, onto the back straightaway, and Jordan Szoke right in behind him, and he looks like he's got a plan here, Colin rather. I think Jordan of the Jungle maybe has a plan in mind.
And it's a little tricky to make a pass because normally you try and sort of reverse the math on the guy in front, but right now the problem is it might reverse you into a puddle, and there Young picked it up and changed his line again coming out of the carousel. So Young is working this set of problems. He's trying different things, and it's working fairly well. He'll be seeing his pit board right then, and there's nothing to choose.
Szoke again, taking a stab down into turn 1. I think he's got it done this time. Oh, he does indeed. Jordan Szoke has moved into the race lead. Watch for a return pass down in 2 by Ben Young. No, didn't happen this time around, but I rest assured that Young will be...
Okay, so Young just had a good look back at just past the apex at 2, and he saw there's a number of people fairly close, so he... because he has a very big lead atop the point standings, we have 2 more rounds after this. He had that quick look back as soon as Jordan passed him. So this may be the changing strategy of Ben Young. Yesterday, he charged amazingly hard, given that he didn't need to. Won that race. What an effort. It'll be interesting to see if he decides to go with Szoke, or maybe second's okay today.
Well, for now, he is staying with Szoke a little bit. He was coming off of 5 there in that rise that brings him onto the roller coaster back straightaway. He seemed to be hard on the gas, and indeed, as we come into 9 now, he is there. He's only about 3 or 4 bike lengths behind.
Jordan trying some different thing. Yeah, you can see here there is some dry track, and that's the most dry we've seen so far, and dry enough that you can get more traction, ride it more like it's a dry line, but also going to be much harder on the tire.
It's such a gamble. I wonder if some of the guys out there are thinking, jeepers, maybe we should have put the slicks on.
You would have been so far behind the early going and so lucky not to get caught up in a mess, and then it just depends.
All it would take is one puddle to put you on your backside.
Right, and it's hard to keep your confidence up. We have seen guys who are capable of doing that, but as much as that's a great story, it doesn't usually work that way. And typically in the rain, somebody gets out to a big lead and that's it for the win. But that's not how this one played. And of course, Jordan worked his way through traffic, and here you can see him setting a good pace in front of Young. And I would say that Young's pacing Jordan now and trying to figure out if it's worth the effort. And of course, so many people talked to him since yesterday about the chances he took to win yesterday and the big points lead he has. It's difficult to balance these things. Winning races is very difficult, and once you start to win races, then you start trying to learn how to win a championship, and Ben Young is in the midst of doing that, not too far behind. Thomas Kazaz in this race has demonstrated that he has learned that in the Liqui Pro Sport Bike class, and Jordan Szoke has won so many titles. I mean, we talk about his Superbike championships, but he's won in a bunch of other classes and national racing, and also other types of motorcycle sport.
Right, so when we're talking just in Canada, thus far, he also had a brilliant career in the United States of America, including riding for the Harley-Davidson Superbike team when it was active.
Right, and Ben Young is much closer again now, and looking back, there's still a gaggle of guys about, I would say, 4.5 seconds behind, and Young is much, much closer to Szoke, and you can see Szoke trying to find the dry spots, and we're getting more and more dry track, and I'm not saying that it would have worked to start on slicks, but it's a little drier sooner than maybe I would have predicted.
Well, Ben Young wants to be the champion. Let there be no question about that. And Ben Young has raced against Jordan Szoke for enough times, enough years here in Canada to know full well that Szoke is out for redemption today. He was really, really angry about that crash yesterday. It ruined a motorcycle, and that's twice that he's broken a Kawasaki in competition here in Canada this year. And you can rest assured he has come out with vengeance in mind.
Well, you can't discount Szoke. He just has so much experience, and he is not a quitter.
With him.
He has a strong crew. Ben Young maybe has the strongest crew in the series right now, and Ben Young has made steady progress, and since Canadian Tire Motorsport Park last year, we've sort of seen a new Ben Young, and he has more or less controlled the tour in 2019.
Working lap number 13 of 20. This originally scheduled for a 22-lap national championship race, and they shortened it by 2 laps. In fact, give the riders 2 laps of warm-up before we started this fray.
Heading into 3 once again, you can see the style of Jordan Szoke hanging off the bike, trying to get onto the fat part of the tire. It's got the most traction, the most rubber on the road, trying to have the electronics help, but to have your riding do more for it. Of course, Jordan comes from an era way back when with flat slide carburetors and crazy power delivery with no electronics. Those bikes were terrifying in the rain. Jordan sliding a bit at the bottom of the roller coaster. Yep, and Jordan is pushing hard. And it's so exciting to watch him ride in the rain. He is so good at it, and Ben Young's right with him, so Ben Young can be proud of his efforts here, and this one's by no means done, because I think Young's wondering if maybe he can win this race.
Well, Ben best be careful. He's not bulletproof, and if Szoke should trick him into a crash, then that could seriously interrupt his chase towards the championship.
Well, trick is interesting because it's strategic, and I think you could cynically say that Jordan is maybe riding harder than he needs to because he's wondering if he can get Ben to go along, right? Because we've seen this even later in championships sometimes, where you're trying to get the guy who has the most to lose to take a chance and maybe lose it.
Yeah, quite so. Working our way up towards turn 3 right now with Jordan Szoke in the race lead on the Mopar Express Lane, and Blackfoot.com sponsored bike there again, searching for traction with that Dunlop rear rain tire. Almost said slick rain tire. Wow.
Yeah, he's picking up the throttle and sliding the bike, and that is great to see, and he's getting a good drive, and he's pulled away just a little bit just in the last few turns, a little wheelie there at the top tail. Okay, here we are in the midst of that battle just behind them, and I know that we're watching from Samuel Trepanier, and there's jamming Jeff Williams at the scene of some of his best jamming from over the years, and we're going along the back straight, 2 BMWs with well over 180 horsepower, and now we're back at the carousel.
Beautiful shot of Jordan Szoke, and looks like we're coming up on traffic now, so we'll see whether that has any impact or anything there. Jeff Williams had just a bit of a step out as well, as the Williams Paving sponsored S1000RR delivering power to the track surface, and that Dunlop slick just losing a bit of traction there.
Let me explain the strategy of Jeff Williams. It's yeehaw, right? I just know he's having a great time. He's settled in. He knows what the tire's doing.
Oh, look at Trepanier now has jetted past. That was a really nice accelerated pass by Samuel Trepanier, and he has shunted that number 7 BMW in behind him. He on board the Carrier BMW sponsored Blisk Racing S1000RR. There's 2 BMWs there going up the hill towards turn number 3.
And Trepanier took a bit of a chance. He did his hard braking where there was a little bit of dry track, and then he had to go on to the wet because of the line he'd chosen, and that could have been exciting, and I think this is good for Trepanier. He doesn't have much time in the rain, although he's been in some wet Moto America races earlier this year that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
But Jeff is a courageous, flamboyant rider, a lot of style, and not afraid to drift and slide and spin and have fun with the motorcycle. He's not intimidated. Another guy who goes back to the early days of Superbike when the bikes were a lot harder to ride. And Jeff Williams, for at least 20 years, has been fast at Shubenacadie. So probably good for Trepanier to have a look at some of that, although it might give him some nightmares tonight.
Williams is truly a character. You know, I love the story from last year when he crashed out in turn number 1. They red flagged it, and they sent the ambulance down there, and the EMS technicians were looking all over for Jeff Williams. He has scrambled up to the grandstands and was sitting drinking beer here with the spectators.
Yeah, and now we're back on board with Trepanier coming down the hill there, showing some decent pace. Williams maybe leaned over a little bit more. Jeff's probably more aggressive with the motorcycle and having another good run. He's had several of them lately and been mixing it with the younger guys. And intriguingly, Williams and Casas have been together almost every race this season.
Yes.
And it's fun to see those two guys because Jeff might be just a little more than twice as old as Thomas.
Colin, we don't, in race conditions in the rain, we don't talk too much about rider equipment, but we should mention we got a lap rider who are coming up on there. A lapper, I should say, and I believe that is Vivian Matthews. Now,
yep,
Matthews is on the number 3 bike. He hails in from Ottawa, Ontario, and he is in the Brooklyn Cycle Pro Rookie of the Year race, mixed up a little bit with Nicky Mounier. Mounier's got the points lead right now, but
right, Nico has been doing well, but this effort here is going to be important because Mounier opted not to race because of the conditions. So there's a lot of points on the table, and Vivian is. I think he's 10th, so good points haul there, and he's into the money.
Right on. Yeah, that may have been a bad call by Mounier's crew. But what I wanted to touch on, Colin, was knee pucks. The thicker knee pucks that they use in rain conditions, and I'm assuming that is the case today.
I don't think so because of how you ride at Shuby. You don't want to limit your clearance. I don't see anybody with the tall pucks, which is more of a thing for European-style tracks. It's interesting. I remember Brett McCormick deciding not to go with the tall pucks because he felt it restricted him on the bike a little too much. I mean, it's such a personal style thing, how you set up your helmet, all those things when it rains. Some guys don't change anything. Some guys do so many things with the bike, with their riding gear and all of that. But as this track dries, how you ride the bike does change a bit. And, Jordan's style and how he's hanging off and weighting the pegs and turning the bike. And he's so impressive through the carousel there. And you can see it spinning the tire. And, it's literally hundreds of times I've watched Jordan Szoke at races riding this way in this style in this position. And it's always really entertaining. He's a determined guy. And this is a pretty relentless effort.
2 laps to go. Watching Jordan Szoke right now come down through turn number 1. It's on the brakes and peels it off into that left-hander, which is turn number 2, and it looks like he has a sizable lead here. Look at that thing searching for traction.
And he was running right up a seam there. There's a little high spot there coming out of turn 2, out of the hairpin. And look at here, he's looking for the dry spots and making that chassis work. And I think you can see that probably he softened it up just a little bit. Of course, one of the suspension gurus in the world, John Cornwell, who's known for his work with Öhlins, the top-end suspension company. John does a lot of the chassis stuff and some of the electronics with Szoke, and they would have worked hard to figure out what they want to do in terms of a combination with the bike, and as I said, they only have the one bike now, but both the bikes were strong. They used both of them this weekend, so it's interesting that his first time in the rain, and at Shubenacadie too, that Szoke has found a lot of performance for today.
In the off-season, Jordan Szoke spends a lot of time on the ice, too, and that probably is of great advantage to him in situations like this.
Yeah, and I don't think Ben Young is inclined to engage. He's a safe distance behind, and he's not going slowly, but he doesn't seem to be concerned with challenging.
2 laps to go as we pick up on Szoke once more, coming down off of turn number 1. Can I tell you another Jeff Williams story?
Everybody likes a Jeff Williams story.
Well, I'm remembering the years when he rode for Diablo and he won the Supersport race here. They gave him the checkered flag. He took it out for a lap around the racetrack and he never gave it back to them.
Well, at the time there was some discussion that there had been some unfortunate circumstances for Jeff at Shuby, and maybe he deserved a break on that one. So, yeah, Jeff's a well-liked guy, and he's ridden for pretty much all the big teams. He was a star in 600 racing for a long time. He came up on Yamahas, then was a top Honda guy.
Right, yeah.
Kawasaki, then the Diablo Suzuki squad, back to Kawasaki, retired for a bit, came back to 600, and now has had a solid time recently Germany on the BMW, which is a program, the one that BMW Motorrad in Canada run, and the way those bikes are offered and the parts you can get and all that kind of stuff. There's a number of our guys who are doing that, and it certainly suits the Jeff Williams effort.
We see him on numerous occasions down at the Race Super Series. On board with Ben Young right now. We're climbing the hill towards turn number 11, and we break the horizon there. The flag is out indicating we have one more circulation to go on this race course, and a sizable distance. We're not going to see any challenge here at all from Ben Young. We'll just follow Szoke for a while and see how he handles things in the last stages, the last lap of this 20-lap National Championship Superbike race.
Yes, the one Mopar Express Lane Blackfoot Kawasaki ZX10 Double R Ninja that Szoke currently has. The other one gave its all yesterday, but this one is giving its all right now, and it hasn't been the greatest year for Jordan. There's been some problems, but we don't want to jinx him. This should be his second win, and definitely he has figured out the Kawasaki. When he won at our last venue at St-Eustache in the Dry, it was a very impressive effort, and he and Young put on another great show, and this year we're getting used to Ben Young and Jordan Szoke having a great fight together. Normally we expect Trevor Daly lately to be part of that, but unfortunately he fell down right here earlier in this race. He's back running, but he's not amongst the front runners, but Daly not hurt, regained the bike and continuing to run.
He got a big round of applause too when he remounted. Here comes Szoke now up the hill over past the Pro Cycle Control Tower. The checkered flag is out, and Jordan Szoke has scored his first national championship win of 2019.
Little wheelie there from Ben Young as he cruises off the throttle nice and relaxed, and there you can see some jubilation. And when you've had a bad weekend and had a lot of things go wrong, and last night Jordan was pretty dejected about the whole thing, to pull it all together, to throw a setup in the rain, bike he's never ridden in the rain, and do what he just did. A fantastic effort by Jordan Szoke. As we look at our results confirmed there. Now, what's remarkable here, what we need to look at and give some attention to, is Thomas Kazaz, his first podium on a 1000cc Superbike, and it's not easily done at Shubenacadie. Trepanier up to 4th, Jeff Williams right there in 5th, Michael Leon fading to 6th. Daly crashed, continued, finished 7th, and then we look at the rest of the top 10, and it's a bizarre situation, but of course you have to survive the weather. Let's go to the podium with Frank.
Tommy, you got to be delighted. When we talked to you after the sport bike race, you were plumb worn out, but you brought it home, put it on the podium. Congratulations, young man. Talk to us.
Oh, thanks so much, Frank. Honestly, I'm speechless. I don't even know how I did that. After that 600 race, I went straight in my trailer, and I'm not kidding you. I was so dizzy and so behind in hydration. I don't know how I recovered from that. If it wouldn't have been raining, I don't know if I would have been able to complete that whole race, but to be up here with these guys, that's just incredible. Honestly, I cannot thank my whole team enough, everyone that's behind me for making this possible. I got a decent start, and then I just started working my way up, and I had a few moments, and I'm just happy to be up here, honestly.
Ladies and gentlemen, your third place finisher, Tommy Kazas. And Tommy, if you'd kept talking, you'd be dry now. Let's get under the tent once more here with Ben Young. Ben, a smart race.
Yeah, that was a wild one. For a second, I honestly didn't think we were going to be able to go ahead with that. The amount of rain, the thunderstorm came down, that was nuts. Thanks so much to everybody this year, and everybody's soaked. So thanks to the fans for making it out and staying here when they're wet, and all the corner marshals, because we know how risky it is with the thunderstorms out there. But I was just saying to Jordan, I like that I got the whole shot, but in a rain race, it's never always the best thing. It's nice to have a pace there, and unfortunately I was that pace there, but I got into a comfortable groove, and once Jordan was behind me, we started to check out, so I knew it was him. I could see his pit board right next to mine, and I was quite comfortable just sitting there doing my thing, and he came by, and I was quite comfy sitting back there. Then we got caught up by a lapper that was kind of a strange situation. He moved over to let us by, but then jumped back on the race line, so it was quite an odd one. So I got stuck behind him there, and then Jordan managed to get the gap, and I pushed for a lap, and the gap stayed the same. I was like, you know what, it's a long game here, so let's not let do anything stupid, because it was drying crazy fast out on the track. But just looking at all 3 bikes here, different manufacturers, and all 3 Dunlop sets of Dunlop tires are all looking great considering the conditions. So thanks to Dunlop for the great support for us all out here, and BMW worked great. The boys put such a great wet bike under me, even considering we didn't have all that wet time on it. So I think my only second or third time riding a Superbike in the rain, so it was a crazy one. But thanks to all the East Coast fans, we coming out here with a points lead and rolling into the last one, so it's going to be great.
Braveheart takes second spot. Up to the top of the box. Jordan, you and I have been on the podium a number of times over the years, but I don't ever remember under such conditions.
Yeah, I was trying to think the last time we had a wet race where it was dry and you're sliding them around like flat tractors, and I think it was Tremblant. The year, unfortunately, we lost JR. I think that was the last time we had a wet dry race. The last wet race we had was St-Eustache, and I was able to win that one as well. I've been pretty good in the wet over the years. I knew once we got behind Ben and we started to pull away pretty quickly on everybody, that once I got by Ben, I knew he'd fight me for a bit, but if I could get a little bit of a gap, he would probably back her down a little. He's got the championship to think about. He's a smart rider, and so that's what I did. I just got behind him and then set. Plus, I've been riding with Ben a lot over the years, so I know what to expect. So I stayed behind him and let him do the pace setting like he said, and we got a good gap on everybody. And then I decided to put my head down and get ahead of him there. And when the tires really started to move around, that's becomes my forte. All the ice riding I've done over the years and riding bikes before there was traction control. And we're just sliding these things out of 3 over there, leaving big black marks on the rain tires. It's always so much fun. The Dunlops worked awesome. We all got really lucky that the tire didn't start raining like this with this tire. Once the edges go off them, they're like a slick in the rain. So it worked out perfectly for everybody in the race that way. And it was a good one. I just want to thank my crew. They've been working really, really hard. Me wrecking bikes, I don't usually do that, and I've wrecked 2 this year. So we didn't have any time on the rain on the Kawasaki, and we didn't have a rain bike. So if anybody's seen us, we were scrambling between dry and wet in the pits, ripping the bike back apart and back apart again, trying to get a bike ready where you'd normally have a slick bike and a rain bike. So it was a bit hectic for us, but I can't thank the crew enough. They just did a fantastic job as usual. One of the best crews I've ever worked with for sure, and I owe this one to them.
Ladies and gentlemen, your podium from round 5 of the Mopar CSBK National Championships, with Tommy Casas in 3rd place, Ben Young taking 2nd, and on top of the block, the People's Champion, Jordan Szoke.
Now let's look at the point standings in Mopar Pro Superbike and the chase for the coveted #1 plate in Canada. Ben Young has just about got it done. Saturday in the first of our 2 doubleheaders next month at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, he should be able to clinch if everything goes according to plan. Jordan Szoke is in a decent 2nd, but not too close in the points. Trepanier moves up to 3rd. Casas slides to 4th. Daly is 5th, even though he fell and remounted today. Williams 6th, and then we have the rest of the group, including Nickerson, who didn't finish today, crashing in the rain.
So round 5 of the Mopar Canadian National Superbike Championships for 2019 is now a part of history. The next race is, of course, another doubleheader coming up at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in August. We look forward to broadcasting to you, the fans, from there then. See you next time. Today's event has been presented by LS2 Helmets, Pro Cycle, and Liquimulli. Our broadcast is presented by Mopar Express Lane, Dunlop, and Parts Canada.